Everybody, this is Dr. Ben Pearl with FitFootU, and today we have a special guest. He's kind of a sensation in YouTube world with, I guess, intermittent fasting and the keto diet, and he's going to talk a little bit about that, but we're drilling down to sports and sleep, and maybe more importantly, sleep in general, because we're not just looking at athletes, we're looking at everyday people and how integral exercise is for sleep. So today we have Dr. Berg. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Honored to have you. The first question I'm going to have is, what are we missing? I think now coaches are starting to see, hey, we're on a travel team. These kids got a 3 lacrosse weekend thing. It got canceled in upstate New York because the air quality is bad. Now we gotta spend an extra day at the Ramada Inn. What are we missing here, Dr. Berg?
Well, you're talking about I guess the winds from Canada coming in and
I'm just talking about in general, sort of the stresses of the reality of life and road travel for whether it be youth sports, pro sports, or the diabetic just trying to get to the gym in the morning and traffic.
I was there. That was me definitely, and going through sports, in high school and then college. I wrestled in college, and boy, I wish I would have known now back then what I know now, because unfortunately, a lot of these coaches they overtrain you, and they don't have the level of technology that some of the Olympic coaches have that work with the top athletes in the world, which is they really focus on recovery, and so they have a better technology instead of just burning someone out. I was always like undefeated in the beginning of the season, and towards the end of the season, I could barely, even keep up. And especially, of course, wrestling is like very demanding. So I think the topic is, not overtraining. I mean, even from a genetic standpoint, so many people have, they don't have good recovery genes. They don't have, their bodies are inflamed. They have a lot of inflammatory issues. So that's what I had. I didn't know it at the time. So here I was overtraining and just filling my body up with inflammation. And then, because that's really, when we're talking about recovery in sports, we're talking about how to get rid of inflammation fast. So that would be a good topic to just bring up. Just simply, if you're trying to exercise and if you're in sports or not, you don't want to overtrain, because that's going to affect your sleep. It's going to affect your ability to get your gains and your performance, your autonomic nervous system. So I would always err on the working out less than more, giving your body a chance to repair. And of course, if you can't sleep, then that's going to really throw things off. I don't know if you've ever seen a study with people that work rotational shifts, right? The amount of it's similar to smoking cigarettes as far as oxidative stress. So that sleep just fills up your body. Apparently, when we sleep, we get rid of oxidative stress with our antioxidants. So it just impresses on the importance of eating even better when you're not sleeping. But of course, people don't. They eat junk foods. But yeah, recovery is such an important topic.
I'm glad you referenced the fuel to the fire, because I'm going to show you what we had here at the institution. I don't want to embarrass my own institution, so it's going to be nameless for now, lest I get a letter from the CEO. But I work at a hospital, and this is the physician office building. So we do have some veggie options. It's not like there aren't any. You can't see it real well, but there's some spinach here, Dr. Berg, and let's see what else I got here. I did get some carrots, a cucumber, and a little bit of cheddar cheese. Turns out I just found out I'm osteopenic, so I got to get some calcium somehow. And then we have the leached string beans over here on this side. Not the most scrumptious savory meal to have. And so what you didn't see that I decided not to choose was the Mongolian beef that was going to be just a sodium glut, and swimming around in the soy sauce and whatever else they did with the low cut beef. I will have to admit, we did make one correct diet choice in terms of not overeating this gigundous bistro burger that was got elsewhere. And what I did is I had the lean patty, and I didn't do the whole bun, Dr. Berg, because I'm pre-diabetic. So I took the cap off this nice brioche bun and had half the bun. I know you, and you can probably delve into this a little bit better than I can in terms of even that. I know with carbs, I am stimulating somewhat insulin receptor, that whole cascade. Maybe you can put it in nice perspective. I did, however, yield by my burger choice, at least having something savory, of topping it off with this. This is a beautiful Italian bakery-esque wedding cake style double layer whipped cream cake that I passed on. Of course, that was probably the best thing, at least put together wise, on today's hospital menu. So there you have it in a nutshell.
Well, I'm glad that at least at the most critical time when you need to be eating healthy, going to the hospital, right, or even critical care, they unfortunately you get institutional food, which is basically the same food that we feed prisoners, and you know, it's just the lowest of the lowest quality.
On that
So,
on that half bun, how bad of a choice is the little bun that you have, not the big topper bun, in terms of goals for you know putting that in scheme? It's not it's bleached flour, I'm sure. How would you put that into perspective of the choices we're making every day?
well, when you add a protein to a carb like that, you get kind of a worsening of the situation. You get
Oh, really?
worsening of the insulin because it affects what's called glycation. So it combines that sugar molecule with the especially with heat, and then of course eating is you're going to combine that protein with that starch or sugar or carb. You start creating even more of a problem. So it makes the proteins sticky and creates all sorts of issues. It happens also when you combine sugar with fat, as in ice cream, things like that. Yeah, so that's
So yeah,
why.
it sounds like I came in at a C- here today, Dr. Berg.
Yeah, I think we're gonna give you a C- in that one, but hopefully you won't at least eat the cake, right?
Right. Okay, so now let's move on to, I've got a game. I'm jazzed up because I just competed in this game, and our adrenal cortisol levels. Maybe I scrapped it up with one of the opposing soccer players. Got a little chippy. So now you're trying to chill down. It's a night game. Let's say you do a league, and of course they're scheduled at all odd hours. For the adults. Um, how do we bring it down?
Well, a lot of times when you kind of activate the adrenal glands and adrenaline, it kind of stimulates this heightened state of adrenaline, which is hard to kind of come down, especially if it's chronic. And so the best way is to flush out this adrenaline, especially so you could sleep at night, is to go on a long walk, because that way we can actually flush out the adrenaline without a higher exercise routine. But even if we look at exercise in general, this is why the duration of exercise is, you have to watch out for that because that can increase cortisol. So that's why a shorter duration, higher intensity is always better. That's called high intensity interval training, is much better for the adrenals than this maybe moderate jog that you go for a long period of time, or even marathons. It's very stressful on your body. You have to be very healthy to endure these marathons or this long duration where you don't have a break. So to work with the body to be able to spike things and let it come down, you should do interval type training, whether it's a high pulse, and then low pulse, that type of thing, even on a spin bike, or soccer's kind of like that too, because you're doing these bursts of energy and then you're doing slow type exercise. But as far as to flush out this adrenaline from the flight or fight mechanism, whether it's coming from stress or exercise, long walks is really good. Vitamin B1 is a really good one for flushing out the lactic acid that can build up in the body, that can end up as and like restless leg syndrome or things like that. And then also doing, instead of even exercise, doing physical work around your yard outside takes the mental component out of the picture too, because you're like you're focused on something else while you're doing exercise versus just on a treadmill or doing exercise, things like that, which is, it's hard to take your mind off that. But that's why I like physical work. It's always the best thing for stress and to flush out adrenaline. I always sleep better when I do physical work around the yard or outside somewhere.
I'm glad you mentioned the chronic habituation with the adrenals because I believe to some extent I'm guilty also of that. I have cognitive with clinic. Sometimes other things happen on the way to work that stimulate my adrenals. Sadly, twice in the last 3 weeks, I had near misses, one with a car and one with a transit bus on my bike, where I literally was almost swept off the road. And I'm listening behind me, hearing the bus, seeing it now on my side, and by the curb, it went into the bike lane because they're in a rush. They're sleep deprived. They're sleep drunk, and almost took me out.
Wow.
So now my adrenals, and not going to be probably I'm going to be probably a little, unfortunately, a little more curt with my staff. I had, and where's the blood work for Mrs. Jones? Because now I'm coming off this train where literally the fight or flight, mechanism kicked in.
You know, just on that topic, when I was in practice, I was in practice for 30 years, and I would work late hours, and then in the winter, I'd get home and it's dark out, but I had to exercise to get rid of the stress. So I would get on my bike too in the winter when there's ice on the ground, and I would just bundle up and go for a ride. It's so dangerous in the dark with the headlights. That was so stupid. But yeah, just to get that energy out of my body because I'd be so wired. One really good tip just for that, if you go through a lot of stress at work, whatever, is taking a natural form of B1, higher amounts right before bed.
Do you have any
Because,
dosage you'd recommend
yeah,
for
so
somebody
if
about
you,
150 pounds ish?
there's one version called, it's called alethion. It's a natural version. It's originally from garlic. It's a B1. There's other versions too, but you don't want the synthetic version. And it comes in like 50 milligrams. So I would take 3 or 4 of those before bed. You're going to find that it turns off that excessive thinking mode, and you'll get a much better sleep simply because that B1 is essential for um, certain enzymes that relate to the energy factory of the body. And that affects neurons in your brain and your heart and throughout the rest of the body. So it's a really great remedy. And especially if you have like a buildup nervous tension that you feel like you're ready to explode, like you take some of that within 4 minutes, it's like, oh, I can breathe. So it's really important also in the autonomic nervous system, which can affect your breathing. So you can find when you take enough B, you can breathe better, you get more oxygen, less hypoxia. And one really huge thing that depletes the B vitamins, especially B1, is sugar or carbs. So the more carbs you eat, the more B1 you need, and people don't realize that. And also, coffee and tea depletes B1, and stress depletes B1. So it's a really important, since we're on the topic of stress, that's an important vitamin.
Now, I know you've, because I've watched some of your sleep videos just under normal circumstances, you've promoted melatonin. How would that incorporate with exercise and sports?
I never recommend taking it as a supplement because it's a hormone. You can get it actually through infrared from even the sun. Um, Over 50% of the rays are infrared, and infrared builds up a different type of a source of melatonin. It goes right through your skin, even through your clothes, even through a hat. It goes in your body. If you're outside, and you can get this melatonin through the IR, or even a campfire, or your fire in your fireplace, or even an infrared light. You can get this melatonin that can actually help your sleep. Um, but melatonin also is increased in darkness as well, and the stuff that's affecting your sleep. So this is why when you go to sleep at night or start winding down, and you're sitting in a room that's all lit in front of the TV, you want to keep things dark, probably around 8 o'clock, so you can start to affect this melatonin. And Of course, on your computer screen or your different modalities, you have the blue light, which inhibits that as well. So that's why I don't do a lot of computer work at night. That's going to really affect your sleep because the melatonin. Also, I wear the goggles I mean, not goggles, but just dark out like shades in my eyes because if your room has little lights in it, whatever, and or electronics close to your bed, that can all really mess with your melatonin.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the infrared. As we talked about in the episode that I did with you, I'm a big proponent with infrared. They look like little light brights, the LEDs, and we use them for injury as well. I'm glad you mentioned the tip about going through the clothes. So um, maybe there hasn't been much written scientifically about this, but how much do you think that is lost if you're going through a thin layer of clothes?
Not much. It penetrates very easily. It goes in 2 inches. And so I'll have to find that really interesting research paper on that and I'll send it to you. You can even put it down below in the comment section for people to read. But it's fascinating, this whole topic of melatonin and what it actually does. It actually acts as an antioxidant, one of the most powerful ones, even more powerful than glutathione. So this infrared has fascinating properties, one being increasing melatonin throughout the whole body that is external to the pineal gland. So it's really interesting.
Well, we're rounding third and coming home, and I think this is another topic that is relevant today here in 2023, as we're coming out of the pandemic. What's your sense on sleep, COVID, without getting too down in the weeds? We were talking before that some of the data still needs to sort of stream out before we make speculations, but you're a pretty good cultivator of science. And what's your thoughts on COVID, sleep, and sports, and the post-COVID, so-called long COVID, et cetera?
Yeah, the long haul COVID. That is, you have like the post-exertional malaise. That's a big one. Like you start exerting yourself and you just, oh my gosh, I don't feel right. I feel sick. I feel tired. I feel achy. I have achy joints. I have brain fog. So many people are in that mode, and then they have a lot of dizziness, which has to do with the autonomic nervous system. So circling right back to something that I found working with a lot of people for that problem anecdotally is the B1 again, the thiamine. Thiamine in higher amounts, I think, has been the most successful thing to kind of support the mitochondria. That being said, there is something else that I would recommend at the same time, methylene blue. And you put 20 drops of that in some water, maybe with some electrolytes in the morning. Drink that with your B1 thiamine natural version, and boy, does that give you a nice, fairly quick change to this post-COVID issue that so many people are having. Um, but that's just been something that I can also put a link down for more information on that because there's some great research that I had to dig through to find because you're not going to find it just by searching on the first or second page of Google. But there's a lot of data on how you can use thiamine for recovering from that issue, especially if you're exercising and you just lose your gas, where you're like, man, I just don't have that endurance like I should.
Well, we're going to wrap it up with one final question. We're approaching summer here, and a lot of people traveling in airplanes. And I know you've just been back for some travel. Any tips on sleeping on the airplane? Tough as you get older.
Yeah, so many people have a hard time with that, and it just messes everything up with the jet lag. Um, to reset your circadian rhythm, what you should do right before you fly is to take a good amount of vitamin D3, like at least 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3 and B12. Both of those will greatly help you make that adjustment. So instead of like a 3-day adjustment with the time changes, it'll be like maybe a day. Like I just flew back and it's a 6-hour change. And it just took me a day to kind of reset because I took those nutrients. I wish I would have known about that way before. But yeah, sleeping in planes, especially the food they serve you, and you're going to end up with a swelling and edema. So um, just don't eat the food that they give you on that plane unless it's high quality and you're sitting in first class. You get lucky enough to sit there, but you know, the stuff they feed you and you have alcohol, it's like you're going to drink all that. I wouldn't recommend that. You're just going to suffer for some days as you adjust to that change in location.
Well, this episode certainly is going to put no one to sleep. This is all very good information. I've learned at least 3 things in the last 20 minutes here. So thank you so much, Dr. Berg, for doing this. And where do people find out more about what you're doing on your podcast and your YouTube channel? How do they reach out?
You can either go to drberg.com. I have a lot of data there, or just search Dr. Berg on YouTube, and I have about 6,000 videos you can watch. So I have a lot of data. Depending on, just do specific searches, and then you could find what you're looking for there.
Just don't watch too many of them at night, though, right?
Right before bed, not a good idea. But some people say it helps them sleep because my voice apparently is kind of low key. So I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, you do have that radio kind of thing going on that works well. Thanks again, Dr. Berg.